Evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Man's Hour, episode 27 on the meaning of work. I'm joined by a gentleman of power here. Not me, not you, making his triumphant return. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Red Hawk. That intro, it always makes me laugh because it always reminds me of you ever see the movie Orgasmo?
I have not, no.
It's an early Trey Parker and Matt Stone affair, and it's got a song in it called "Now You're a Man," and it's very similar.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, our resident bard, Chris Gard, drafted that up for me last year. The man knows his stuff, the crazy Aussie. So, well, my friend, we are gathered here today to discuss a very interesting topic. Basically on work, the meaning of it, what the goals of it should be, all that fun stuff. And the reason why I got this, idea to do this stream was earlier this week on Twitter. Let me pull this up. I went pretty viral here earlier this week. This is now sitting at 325,000 impressions at this point. And I just tweeted this out. The boomer obsession with an 8-hour workday is nothing short of lunacy. And oh man, I got all kinds of responses from this thing for multiple days. My notifications were just absolutely destroyed to hell for a couple of days. And you were getting like the standard, shit lib arguments, from the left, like, basically agreeing with this, saying, yeah, 8 is way too much. This is oppressive. This is, stopping our great communist utopia, whatever bullshit they're peddling. And then on the other side, you had like boomer cons, a lot of right wingers were just like trying to flex so much more on this, saying like, yeah, that's 4 too, it's 4 too few, we got to work 12-hour days and stuff like this. And I was just thinking to myself, God, there's got to be like a actual, a sensible center, if you will, for this thing, like actually what is work, what it's used for, why it's important, how much of it you should be doing. So yeah, I'm glad you reached out to come on for this one because it's going to be a good conversation.
Oh yeah, I mean, I always joke with people that the reason we're all here is just to suffer. So what else is work but that?
Yeah, exactly. And like I was saying at the start of this, I want to stress my position is not, coming from like a lazy leftist commie kind of take on this thing, like, people should be working less and stuff. It's not exactly what I'm saying. Basically, the crux of my argument essentially is that there's this very weird obsession with a lot of people in right wing circles that they just see work as a virtue in and of itself. And this is a point that Bat brings up a lot, and this is something I also agree with, is that no, work is a means to an end. It's absolutely important as a man that you actually get off your ass and go and do something, just because, you need to develop a skill in something, and it's important for you not to stay, remain stagnant. But, this weird obsession with, turning your work into a career. I despise that word career, because it's just an infectious way of having your work just take over your entire identity and your entire personality. I just really do not like it. It just doesn't sit right with me. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously work fills some sort of purpose, and for a man, it's not the work it's in itself that that makes you feel good. It's the it's the result of that work. So like for example, say you're shoveling your driveway. Like I know you're somewhere it doesn't snow. So you're gonna have to use your imagination on this one, but you're shoveling your driveway and this huge snowplow comes by on the road and just dumps a whole bunch more like right onto it. Like
Mm,
do you feel good that you get to do more work shoveling your driveway? No, you're kind of pissed off about it, but like you do feel good when you're done with it. It's
sense of accomplishment.
yeah. So in the same way, like I know what you're saying with like this kind of the cult of work, the cult of the grind. It's a friend of ours, even if we don't interact with him, Devin Stack. He always kind of criticizes this mentality, as he calls it, the alpha slave mentality. It's
Mm,
like, great, I get to spend all of my waking hours grinding away so I can buy a bunch of stuff. Like, oh, cool. Like, you're really filling your life with meaning, aren't you?
hmm Yeah, I got to work this 80-hour week to get the next big, McMansion and the next big supercar or something like that. And it's like, no, how about just, making less money and more importantly, spending less money, on frivolous things and actually enjoy the finer things in life, more free time, more time for, yourself, your friends, activities that you actually want to do that ideally that is what's making up your personality and not, just being sucked into your work.
Yeah, obviously, like, it's kind of cringe to say this work-life balance thing, but it's a real thing. And I wonder if the genesis of the 8-hour workday isn't, just straight because of mechanization and industrialization. So like during the Industrial Revolution, those machines could be run 24 hours theoretically, but it
Mm,
requires people to do it. So the 8 hour, like a day, because the task is never complete. You can
mhm,
always make more widgets. So like it's kind of it is at its heart like this necessary consumerist idea. Whereas like the work that you do, if you're say a tradesman, there's a job that's going to be completed. You have a time frame in which to complete it, and along the way you can make milestones to kind of determine whether or not you're going to complete that job, and
mhm.
it takes as much time as it takes
Yeah,
and that's it. But when it's done, it's done.
yeah, absolutely. And I really like that point, about the mechanized like factory job. It's essentially just never ending. Like our mind goes to, the sweatshops in like China or other places in like Southeast Asia where people are just literally working for forever until they decide to throw themselves outside of windows. And it's like, okay, well, there's your 12-hour workday, that you guys are really flexing on and stuff like that. I mean, what's the issue with something like that? It's like, oh, well, it's something about the conditions or something about the totalitarian nature of it. It's like, no, it's really because like that's not free, at the end of the day. If you're just literally working nonstop all waking hours, it's like, okay, yeah, you're, but what else are you? Are you just a cog in somebody else's machine?
Yeah, and it's one of those. There's that thing, we work to live, we don't live to work. And like I know
Mm,
that there are some people who like they go into the office every day with just a big old boner, and it just they can't help it. But
mhm.
that I don't think that's most people. Most people want to do other things that don't involve like I don't even know what to put it because like if you're talking about office jobs, it's something that's mind numbing. You're talking
Mhm.
about trades jobs. It's something that damages your body. And sure, at the end of the day, you can feel like a sense of accomplishment, but you finish your work, you have a sense of accomplishment, you eat, you go to sleep, you wake up the next day. Like maybe you can live with that, but like that's not something most people can do.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the other thing too is that this is something that Aaron Clary, who's been a previous guest on the show, brings up a lot, and I totally agree with him. Is that the simple fact of the matter is that all jobs suck, and what he means by that is that your most valuable resource in life is your time. And when you go to a job, you're sacrificing your time in the form of currency. And ideally, of course, that job sucks because you'd rather be doing something else with your time, which is why you're trading it for this currency so you can go and do something that you actually like. So even though like some jobs are more enjoyable than others, number one, you're eventually going to get fatigued. You're eventually going to get bored of it. It's like the joke we have all the time is like, no matter how hot that girl is, somebody somewhere is tired of fucking her, and it's the same thing with any job, like there's no such thing as like follow your heart and the money will follow kind of deal. It's ridiculous. Eventually you're going to get burnout. Eventually you're not going to enjoy it. Eventually the novelty is going to wear off and you're going to want to go and do something else, something that you would actually want to be doing with your time.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of this clip that's been floating around the internet for like the last like year or so. I'm sure people have seen it. It's this like professional Twitch streamer who's just having a meltdown, just
Mm,
screaming about how like he hates his life. He doesn't have any friends. His hygiene is terrible. All he does is like stream video games, and he hates the games that he plays. And like, yeah, the guy spends a lot of time working. Great. Like, where's the meaning in his life? He obviously doesn't find any.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and that's just, I think when you go into a situation with that kind of attitude, not this like false bullshit that you're taught in like high school from your guidance counselors or your parents or whoever else. It's like, oh, you really got to find that dream job. It's like, no, go work the job that pays you the most money in the shortest amount of time, so you can actually go out and do the things that you want to do, and just suck it up, because all jobs suck. And I think that that's just such a much more healthy attitude to have with the situation. It's like, no, this isn't my personality. I'm not here to go to your stupid, wine nights or bar nights at the office or whatever other bullshit you're trying to do to make me stay in this office longer than I want to be, or these stupid like team building exercises for your, worthless cubicle positions, or Bagel Tuesdays or whatever bullshit that people are throwing out there. It's like, no, I'm here to do a job. I'm here to get paid, and then I'm here to leave.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, whenever, that's what I tell all of my customers. I just show up at their house. I'm like, yeah, I'm here to leave. So let's get this done. No, that reminds me of, we don't get the things from our jobs that, say, the boomers got. So we aren't guaranteed. Come on. There's not even a suggestion that if you work your ass off, you're going to be able to have a home and a wife and a bunch of kids and a bunch of free time and a nice car that you can go out with and like, join your friends down at the country club or whatever. Like, all of the previous generations, like, rewards that are easily attainable are just gone. So the purpose that they might have had working, I work 12 hours a day, and yeah, maybe you'll get these wonderful things, but for the rest of us, that's not really a thing that happens anymore.
Yeah, they're much more mercenary now. I mean, that's definitely how I look at it. It's like, in my job, like, I set my boundaries very, very quickly, with any boss that I have, especially for things like contact outside of work hours. It's like, no, I'm not on the clock. You do not call me. You don't text me. You don't email me. Nothing. Absolutely not. No, like, you do not get to invade into my own personal time in my life. I don't care what's going on in the office when I'm not there. That's not my problem. And to a lot of people that would say, oh, that's like such a very, negative and weird way of looking at things. Don't you want your thing to succeed? And it's like, dude, have you like seen the success of like American corporations, American businesses right now? Like, they're run by morons. Everybody's got their head up their ass. Nobody's doing a good job. It's like, no, I'm here to make money. I'm not here, to be friends with people. I'm here to get in, get out, and then go actually hang out with my real friends in real life that I actually get to choose to have relationships with. I'm not forced into this artificial situation.
Yeah, and even with like why do you work? Like, that's the question. Like, obviously it's not your life, and most people's life it isn't theirs either. But I used to work in the corporate world before I went off and started my own business, and like, I'm never going back, right? Like, because now as somebody who works for themselves and who gets to determine their own hours, it's like, all right, I have these tasks, I get them done. Now I can go enjoy myself, or I can spend more time on doing more tasks to make more money. And you get that choice. To have this kind of like idea or this dogma that there's a certain amount of hours in the day that must be filled with work. Like, sure, you're not being productive. Sure, you're not actually doing anything greater. Sure, you're not making tomorrow any easier. But either way, the work must get done. It's Sisyphean. And like, it's not even Sisyphean in the way where you can at least like, shrug and say, well, at least I'm building good muscle, right? It's like, no. I'm literally just wasting time. I'm just spinning my wheels in the mud.
Yeah, absolutely. This was one of the critiques that I got a lot in response to this on Twitter. Is like, oh, well, you should always be working like this standard set of like this 8-hour shift. And my response to that was, and I was telling you this before we came on air, is that I've got a buddy who's working 2 full-time jobs right now remotely because, like, due to the COOF stuff, he's just got remote work. And neither of the other jobs know about each other. And he basically does 2 hours of work for each of them. So he does like 4 hours of work a day. And then he just goes to the gym and he's just absolutely raking in the money because, these jobs are just horribly inefficient. And my that I was trying to make to a bunch of people about the standard 8-hour workday being worthless, and then bringing up the stat that like the average American only does like 3 hours of work a day, and the rest of it is just literally digging a trench and then filling it back up again. And it's like, just imagine the economic engine this country would have if we would just not waste this criminal amount of time, just doing mindless tasks. Like just a simple, one example we can easily say is just like, just for sake of the argument, okay, women are just literally banned from the workforce now. They're literally just not allowed to work. It's like, okay, well, go raise your kids. That'd be a nice start.
I mean, it would definitely make things more efficient if we can get rid of HR departments and compliance departments and like. Anyway, yeah, I feel you with that one. I had another point to make, but I completely forgot it. So.
Yeah, well, I'll piggyback off it and say like, this other thing is like, it's just so bizarre to me that we've basically had this standardized work practice of 8 hours a day for basically 100 years at this point. And the leaps and bounds in technology that have occurred in that amount of time is just astronomical. So like, yeah, we got the internet, we got work from home stuff. Now we've got all these like automated devices that make our jobs so much easier. Why are we still attached to this, 8-hour work thing? And you kind of brought it up earlier. It's this, the Faustian sense just going on for forever. It's just, you're never going to stop. It's like, okay, well, why do I have to just sit at this desk for 8 hours when there's only 2 hours of work that actually needs to be done? I could go use those other 6 hours to, raise my kids properly, homeschool my kids, do something in my community, do something with my church, do something, I don't know, pick my nose, do anything that was like more productive than, just sitting there wasting time.
Yeah, it's almost like so yeah, the 8 hour a day holdover to keep people from being worked to death, right? Because there's always some asshole willing to do it for 10 cents less than you're willing to do it for.
Yeah.
But it's also the boomers almost and other alpha slaves. Let's just call it the alpha slave mentality. Other people with the alpha slave mentality seem to have this almost communist idea, like the labor theory of value, that like because they're putting more work into something, like it has more value. And it's like, no, obviously it has more value for you because you're valuing the time spent doing that work more than you would value the time spent doing something else. But for like everyone else, for the consumer, for your peer who is going to be engaging you for your service or for whatever product you're producing, they don't give a shit how long it takes to make. Sure, if you're an artist and you're spending that time honing your skill, but let's face it, the average person isn't an artist honing their skill. They're just someone clacking away on a keyboard as their spine.
I'm honing my keyboard techniques, and how to write a good paragraph. Yeah.
Right. Or they're doing the wheeling and dealing non-work of sales, which okay, the more time you put into that, definitely the better it gets. But let's be honest, you're not really producing anything. You're just making deals between people who are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, this just opens up into a wider discussion as to how much of, in this context, we'll just use the United States, but how much like the United States economy is just completely fake. Like we basically don't produce anything, and it's just basically just constant, never-ending stream of people sitting at computers, moving money back and forth from different places, and like nothing of actual value is being created here. It's truly staggering.
Yeah, it's almost like this. It's like a Mobius strip, like a conical Mobius strip that's just kind of like bulging as it moves. That like money keeps changing hands and nothing's being produced with it. It's just spinning around and getting bigger because of things like interest rates and fractional reserve lending and all that nonsense. Which you can hop over to Academic Agent's channel if you want to go through the archives when he actually did the economic stuff.
Yeah, no, before the dark times, before the empire. Yeah. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just crazy, man. I mean, we see all these videos all the time on Twitter. It's like, the chick with like the completely like make work senseless job, like a day in the life of a Google exec. And it's literally just her, like, going to Starbucks, typing things on an email, doing worthless like HR jobs, like nothing of value is getting produced. Oh, here's $120,000 a year. It's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, and it's like it's one of those things you look at it, you're like, oh, that's why inflation is not slowing down. It's like because you're just giving people money to spend their money. Like
Mhm.
it's yeah, and I understand why people get infuriated watching those things, especially people who actually have productive jobs. But it's
Mhm.
also like that's what, and specifically talking about the woman thing, like that's what women are are good for. Well, do you mind if I go on a bit of a tangent here?
Go for it. Go for
Okay.
it.
So if work is the default state of man, because we need to be able to build things so that we can live, right? You work to get your food, you work to build something to shelter yourself from the elements. This is a man's world. That's the external world where men go out into the dangerous in order to extract resources from it to build something that women can live in, that so they don't have to do that because they can't do that. They don't have an external generative creative force. A
Mhm.
woman's creative force, the generative force, is within. It is an internal one. And not just in the way that they grow and nurture children, but that is like a major part of it. It's also that when they get into a space that men have built, be it an office building or a home, they decorate it.
Mhm.
Like they decorate the shit out of it. And that like that does take work and it does take thought. It's not generating anything in an external sense because it's not like somebody can come take it and use it, but they are still doing something that is internal, not just to themselves, but to the family or the home that they're in.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good points for sure. I mean, you even see this, as individual workplaces become more and more feminized. There's just, I mean, we talk about things like the HR culture and everything like this, being careful that people aren't, using the correct pronouns in the office or all this other bullshit, or like things like Bagel Tuesday, like we were just mentioning. But yeah, these things tend to happen when you get more women in your workplace. I mean, like, and one of the things I want to stress here as well is like, we're not bringing up these things to, like, bitch about these things. We're kind of just bringing these up as like a value free like analysis of things. Like, if you're going to do X, then Y is going to happen, and this is kind of just comes with the territory of, oh, okay, so we're going to move from a an industrial based economy, move into like a gig economy now, where most of the jobs are worth less. Well, if most of those jobs aren't like physical and actually producing things, well, that allows you to basically magically double the size of your workforce by putting women in there, and that causes a bunch of other economical and social and immigration problems and family formation things on top of that. So it's kind of, it's just a trade-off that you're going to get with this I don't want to use that like cringe term like hyper capitalism, but that's basically what it is.
Yeah, and you see the expression of women's nature when they hit the workforce. It's tone policing, like they would do with their children. It's decorating the office like they would do with their home because they're not women don't understand how to work for something external. So they just kind of keep it in the realm that they know. And in the same way, uh, men that are kind of trapped in an office, it kind of drives them crazy in a way.
Mm,
Um, and I actually have an example of this. One of my customers, I was working at their house, and I was doing an electrical upgrade for them. And this customer is an engineer, very bookish type. You can tell he doesn't really he's one of those guys who you would never really see in a rough bar, right? But
mm,
he was absolutely fascinated by the work that my partner and I were doing because we were doing something generative, we were doing something productive, we were changing literally the his house into something else. And even though he's kind of a bookish, stuck in an office all day long, is always on the screen, there's something in him that when he sees this generative work, it speaks to something deeper than just, oh, these guys are working for a paycheck.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. You definitely do feel that. I mean, I can speak to my personal experience. I mean, when I was doing white collar gigs before I got into my trades gig, I was just sitting there at the computer. I'd get my work done. I would just be clock watching. One of the things I would do when I was at my job is that I had a little journal that I would take in with me, and I would just be doing research on different like hunting trips around the world. I'd be looking up information on calibers of rifles. I'd be looking up information on outfitters, times of year, researching my quarry. I had pages upon pages of these notes in this journal, and I still got it to this day. And because I was just clock watching and I fucking hated it. And then I got into the trades and I like just don't have time to look at the clock. I'm doing my work. I'm listening to, my favorite internet friends, talking in my headphones as I'm doing my work. Nobody's bothering me. And I just have a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. It's like, yeah, I come home. Yeah, my body hurts. It sucks. But at the same time, it's like the days just fly by and I feel like a much more, sense of accomplishment for sure. And I definitely do think we're missing things like that in most of the jobs that exist today.
Yeah, and with things like there's an 8-hour workday, like you're saying, you're twiddling your thumbs, watching the clock. And I came from the corporate world myself. I did the exact same thing. I had tasks for the day. You get them done. You've got time between meetings. There's no one to talk to. What do? You pull up YouTube. You're doing whatever else you wouldn't be doing if you had real work. So as a kind of a weird inversion of where the 8-hour workday comes from, where there's too much work to finish and you have to put a restriction on how many hours somebody's working so they don't die. Now we stick with the 8 hours and it's just, all right, there's not enough work to go around now because most work isn't generative. You're just
Yeah.
doing things on a computer. And
Yeah.
any like you were saying about the the efficiency improving technologies that we have, like they worked. Everything's gotten more efficient. We just haven't changed the way that we think about work in order to kind of map with that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just think so many things would be fixed. And to be honest, I think there definitely is a way to do this now because the combination of things like the welfare state, like the COOF, that have just put a large portion. You know what? I was actually writing about this recently on Old Glory Club, but about how the labor force participation rates continue like to go. To continue to go down. Like people aren't participating in the workforce anymore. There's just a large section of the workforce that's just gone. They're sitting on their ass. They're not getting jobs. They're living off of welfare. It's the age of the employee. I mean, what is it like? We're in the middle of a recession right now, and there's 10 million vacant jobs in the United States. That's amazing. That's like unheard of. So it's like it's now that is the time to is the age of the employee. Be a mercenary. Go in, slap your big dick on the table, and say, no, I will be doing this. No, I will be working 6 hours a day remotely from work. Don't call me outside the office. If you don't like it, then go find somebody else, because nobody wants to work. So you can really leverage a lot of these positions if you're in one of these high demand fields.
Oh yeah, and this was already a thing before the COOF had everybody shit in their britches. People would you go into a corporate job and you don't stay for 50 years and get your golden watch. That was gone with the 90s.
Mm,
Like now, even since then, it was you get a job, you work there for a couple of years, you get a better job or the same job that is now paying more. Work there for a couple of years. You're expected to do this in the corporate world. You're expected to, put in a little bit of time and then just ride the system up until either you hit a ceiling where you're not like cutthroat enough or capable enough of being cutthroat enough, uh, and then you become a consultant. So
mhm.
it's
Yeah.
like it,
Yeah.
it's all like you were saying before. Everything in our economy and in the workforce and in the work itself is fake and gay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just so bizarre to me that people will continue to attach themselves to this, frankly, like archaic system, and then attach like a value on top of it. Like, oh, this is virtuous that I go and work hard for 8 hours a day. And it's like, well, is it actually? Like, what are you actually doing with your time? And could you actually be using that time in more efficient ways? Not just, to make your faceless corporation more money, but like I keep saying, it's like you could be doing other things. Like you could be going to the gym. You could be, just spending time in nature. Go like enjoy the national parks, or something. Like just do anything other than twiddling your thumbs.
Yeah, anything that isn't stifling and suffocating your soul. And it's again, it's this alpha slave mentality. You see it on social media constantly. People like there is a huge market in LA and New York for renting supercars by the hour
Mm,
and like and gold jewelry and all of this stuff so that you can pretend that you're very wealthy on social media and talk about how you work. Oh, I put in 16-hour days so I can enjoy this Bugatti, right? And then
like
actually you've only had it for a couple of minutes,
there's
but
so much of that shit on like masculinity account Twitter and stuff like this, and you just have to ask yourself, it's like, oh, okay, if you've got this Bugatti and your 600 Twitter followers and you're trying to expand a brand, it's like, if you can afford this Bugatti, like in real life, then why the fuck are you online? Why are
yeah,
you on
why are you
Twitter
doing
trying to
this?
sell something? Like, why are you trying to sell a Gumroad course for like 49.50? It's like, no, you're a fucking grifter. You're a liar. It's like if you have it, you never flex that you do have it. This is what it is all across the board. Whenever it's wealth, whether it's women, whether it's basically anything that men use, it's like a social signal for anybody else. If you're going out of your way to flex on it, then you actually don't have it because you're trying to, throw people off the scent, so to speak. It's like, what's that book? It's like Millionaire Next Door or something. It's like the people who are like rich, you'd never fucking know it.
Oh yeah, because they it's one of those things. If you go to, have you ever been to a casino?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like the people who don't go to a casino very often, they go for like a night out or something. They dress well, like they're washed up. The people in the high roller section look like hammered ass. Like
Mm-hmm.
they've got their stained sweatpants on. Their hair is disheveled. They've got more money than they know what to do with, so they're just sitting there fucking wasting time gambling. And like they
Mm-hmm.
don't care about the appearance of it because they already have it. They've already made it. It's
Yeah.
the same way with anything as locals in New York City, like any locals in LA, like.
Yeah, and it's just something that people attach themselves to because it sounds good. Like it's a meme, like a not in the funny image sense, but like the mental pathogen sense. Like the meme is like, oh, I worked my 8 hour day, but if I work more than 8 hours, then that means I must work harder than somebody else. And if I'm working harder than somebody else, that automatically means I'm wealthier than them or smarter than them or something like this. And like again, that's just not the case. Like I mean, how many hours a day does Bill Gates have to work at this point? I mean, there definitely is an extent, like hard work pays off. And I'm not like discouraging people from pulling like those long days. I mean, I've done like 12-hour shifts before, but it's like I had to get it done, but it's not something like I'm looking forward to doing every single day. It's like, no, I got other things I want to work on.
Yeah, and it's like you said, work is a means to an end. It is not the end in itself. If the
Mm-hmm.
job that you're doing requires you to take 16 hours to finish it, do it. If you're just like, okay, how can I've got 16 hours that I can work today that's going to make me feel like I've done more than other people. What bullshit can I fill it with? Well, don't do it. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's it, and again, like it's one of those things where every individual has their limit. Like why am I working? It's something every individual has to ask themselves. And there's no dogmatic response to like, oh, you're working for the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence. So you have to put in, you know, 8 hours on average per day and take three vacation days every quarter or whatever. There's no
Mm-hmm.
formula for it, but
Yeah.
it's the dogma that you're talking about.
Exactly. This obsession with the standardized workday is just as absurd as, nationalized or standardized schooling. Like anything else that is nationalized and put down to the lowest common denominator is inevitably going to be, inefficient, especially for people that buck the trends and buck that system. Like, I mean, it's just amazing to me that, you know, I like the example I had earlier with my buddy with the two jobs and everything. It's like, if your economy was actually functional, that shouldn't be a thing. You know, like, but the fact that that is a thing, and it's a thing in such numbers that people can game the system this way, just shows you that something is wrong with it, like on its face.
Oh yeah, it's just everything's falling down, and it's falling down in such super slow motion that we can go to bed every day, wake up hopefully 8 hours or more later, and see it still falling down. So like it's just this long drawn out collapse process we're in the middle of. But
Mm,
I mean it's also kind of this idea of consumerism where like more is always better. Like
mm,
like you can make an argument that well, okay, so you won't work 8 hours a day, but we can find somebody who will, right? It's like, cool, yeah, you can find somebody who will work their hands to the bone 18 hours a day, and then the work they put out is shitty, and they step off a railing because they're asleep on their feet, and now you have a lawsuit on your hands. Like
mm,
the quality of a thing, the quality of the work being done, or the product being produced, or the service is should be, in my estimation, greater than how many of those things you can get.
mm. Yeah, very true. I mean, you know, this standardized, you know, system that we're trying to, you know, that we've been talking about here, it also actively incentivizes, you know, you to not do things in a timely manner. I can speak for myself, definitely. Like, I still run into some of this bullshit. Like, if I'm working a job now and I know it's going to take me, let's say, like 4 hours to do, but I know if I finish it in 4 hours and I go back to the office, they're going to give me some mindless task to do that is below my actual like rate for doing my job in the field. So I'm incentivized to kind of like fuck off at my job to drag it out to 6 hours. So by the time I come back to my shop, you know, it's like, oh, okay, well, now it's like kind of acceptable for the boomers in the office to be like, oh, well, you know, you don't have to work that 8 hours anymore. 6 hours is fine. You understand what I'm getting at, you know?
Yeah, for them, again, work is the ends, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, and they also, I mean, for them as like owners of the company, or I don't know if you direct if you deal with the owners directly.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, so they just see, I mean, I don't know them, and maybe I'm being a little cynical here, but a lot of people just see their employees as bottom line pushers. So
Mm,
like they see their employees as expenses, which is very toxic. But it's also this kind of, again, this like consumerist idea. Like is your workforce, what are they? Are they part of your family? Well, then you want them to succeed. If they're just cogs in your machine that exists to make money for you and yours, well then fuck them. And like
mm,
that is this kind of merchant age Talmudic kind of approach.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. We got a super chat here. Son of Hastor, listening and working my second job. Nice. Working for myself. I spent 12 years behind a desk when I realized I hated it. Good convo so far, guys. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and if that's something you want to do, go for it, man. Like if you want to work the 12-hour shifts, if you want to work the second job, like go for it, man. It goes down to what you want. You know, like what kind of lifestyle do you want? What kind of money do you want? You know, are you gonna have a wife and kids? Do you want your wife to stay home? Do you want to homeschool your kids? You know, this is totally up to you. I'm not gonna like I want to make it clear that we're also not like shaming people for who want to work like crazy ass hours and stuff. That's not what I'm saying. You know, it just goes down to you being efficient. You what I want to do is like take off the shackles of people that want to be successful and not have them riddled with these archaic rules. Is essentially what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and again, it's what does success mean to them? And yeah, that super chatter, like, congrats, man. Like I had the same thing, work behind the desk, got laid off, didn't know what to do, get into the trades. First couple of jobs, backbreaking, 16-hour days sometimes, just hating every minute of it. But in the end, still feeling like I was doing more than I was doing when I was sitting behind a desk making more money. So
Mhm.
it's really all about the type of person you are.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is that if people really took a hard look at, you know, things like minimalism and just knowing that you really don't need, especially as a guy, and especially if you're single, like as a bachelor, you know, you can really get away with so much less than, you know, what other people would say. You know, like you don't have to spend crazy amounts of money on a big ass house, you know, if you don't have, you know, wife and kids. You know, you don't need to spend crazy amounts of money on a brand new car. Like go get a used car or something like that. You know, like just spend less money, and you don't have to work so much.
Yeah, stick it to the roasties. Like become that meme where it's that picture of it's like a condo's living room floor with just a television and like a folding chair that says men really live like this and see nothing wrong with it. There is nothing wrong with it. So go
Yeah,
and stick it to some
exactly.
roasties.
I've got no debt. Suck on that, you know. Exactly. You know, because that really is just the biggest thing that will just fuck over your life is just becoming a debt slave. You're just oh, you know, have the $20,000 car loan and the mortgage on the house and, you know, like 25 different subscriptions to streaming services you watch like one episode a month on, you know, it's like just live with less, you know.
And God help you if you're one of those people who fell for the sneaker meme.
No, man. Can't save everybody, man. But everybody's got to get their, you know, everyone's got to get their prime energy drinks and all this other bullshit that everyone's losing their shit over. You know, the next current thing that I'm supposed to buy now to be cool or something.
Yeah, just to signal that you're the alpha slave, right? Like you're the one who's up with what your masters want you to be up with. You've got the new high tops and you've got the the Ray-Ban shades and the Rolex. And if you, again, what you said, if you had that money, you wouldn't need to show it off.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's so true. You know, I mean, like, I think the other thing that's also like so funny as well is like, especially young guys, they get this in their minds that they have to have like the shiniest toys and the fanciest things, otherwise women aren't going to be attracted to them, and that's just complete fucking bullshit. They're all about feels. You know, some of the guys are going to get the most ass you're ever going to meet in your life are dirt poor. You know, like they couch surf, you know, and they just slay left and right, man. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
not only are they dirt poor, but they also look dirt poor.
mm-hmm.
So, it's and it's because they don't give a shit, but whatever. We're not talking about game.
Yeah. No, exactly. You know, but like, let's see. Oh, what else could we extrapolate from this thing here? It's like, so what would you say, like the prevailing wisdom that, you know, guys get when they're growing up kind of deal is like, you know, follow your heart and money will follow kind of thing. And maybe they don't really know what they're looking forward to in like a job or something like that. What would you say? I mean, you're a little bit older than me, but what would you give like advice to the younger guys who are just like starting off and, you know, they finally left college, they've left high school or something, they're looking to get into the actual proper workforce? What are some tips you think?
Think of the type of person you want to be and the things that you want to do.
Mm,
Um, some of the happiest men I've ever met are people who were beach bums or people who they just have barely enough money to scratch together, but they save up a little bit, they grab a plane ticket, and then they go live expat somewhere. Like
mm,
you can do that. That doesn't require a lot of money. It means you're sacrificing a future, but hey, you have to make these kinds of decisions. So it's I'd say do the things that think about what you want to be in 10, 20 years, and then do those things that will bring you to that. And if that's making money, well, then you're going to have to grind. If it's not making like tons of money, if it's just, oh, what I really want to do is like, I want to be a guitar player, I want to be really good at it. I'm not saying rock star, just really good at playing guitar. Well, work a job, have enough to live, play your damn guitar.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I see all the time with younger guys and even older guys too is that they really just, you know, I mean, we talk about it all the time about like a frame, you know, in this space and everything. They just do not have a frame established for themselves. They're always living in somebody else's. You know, it's like, what is what do my parents expect? What does my priest expect? What do my friends expect? What does society expect of me? All these other things. It's like, well, you know, we're actually really, really lucky as guys. You know, as much as we like to bitch about things that are going on in modernity, there are some good things to come out of it. I mean, for one, not all of us are drafted into a war, which is pretty
Mm.
nice. You know, it's kind of like the first time in, you know, the history of being a man where we aren't just expected to kill each other. You know, like we can actually have some degree of control over our own destinies and what we actually want to do. When we have more freedom and more selection for what we want out of our own lives than any other men have in previous ages before us. You know, so that provides a lot of opportunities for you. Do you want to be the family man? Do you want to be the wanderer? Do you want to be, you know, a really, really rich guy? Do you want to be, you know, the guy who's traveling all over the world or whatever it is? You know, it's like you got to set that for yourself. You know, I mean, like the two of us here on this stream, we can't give advice to all the guys exactly what they want because, you know, we're just two assholes on the internet. What does that make us, you know, to tell you how to live? Like, no, our jobs are to, you know, teach you what to, or how to think, not what to think.
Yeah. And it's, you know, just your previous point, I do share some of BAP's romanticism about the warriors of old, but warfare is not that anymore. So whatever. But yeah, I mean, what do we spend our time doing, right? Like I worked all day. I come home, you know, eat, shower, sit down for a stream talking about work. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like work is a productive enterprise. It's, you know, it's defined as actions taken in the goal of a productive enterprise. Whatever that productive enterprise is up to you. But work is, you know, work is something that God cursed us with. It's Adam's curse, right? It's unavoidable. Anything you want is going to take work. So just make sure that work isn't productiveless.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the other thing as well is like, you know, something we should also address here is, you know, this isn't like, you know, an anti-work stream. I mean, like, I do absolutely think that for one, every single guy, you need to keep moving. You know, for most of us, it is going to be a job. It is going to be work. But even like when you retire, you still need to be out doing something. You can't just wither away, you know. And I think, honestly, more so than the money, I think that's probably the most important part of what work actually is. It's just a way to keep yourself, you know, to get out of bed in the morning, keeps you grounded, you know, gives you focus, gives you like an actual task you can go and do. You know, I mean, like, what do they say? Like the idle hands, the devil's plaything. I mean, there definitely is some truth to that to an extent, you know, for sure. So I even if it's just like something part time, you know, just get up and actually go and do something. And it's excellent for your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than sitting around and wallowing in your own head. And, you know, if you're listening to this, you're probably a more cerebral person than most people because most people would never listen to something as droll as whatever the hell we're talking about here. But I'm reminded of a time I took my elderly father. He must have been in his mid 70s. I took him for a walk in a park. And it was, you know, early spring, still a little cold out, but we were passing a group of people who were working a garden on the side of a park, and you know, he addressed this one man who was clearly older than him. So this guy must have been in his 80s, and my father said, "Oh, I'm surprised you're out here doing all this work," you know, and the guy with the hoe in his hand, he just not that kind of hoe, come on.
Yeah.
And he looked at my dad. He shrugged. He said, "If you rest, you rust." And you know that's absolutely true. As a man, like you were saying, you have to always keep moving, keep those gears turning. Otherwise, they will start to fall apart, and sooner than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, it's interesting. You know, I was just thinking about this recently. You know, just around like the Christmas season just came and went recently here, and you know it's so strange because I was sitting there just dreading, you know, having to go back to work. You know, it's like I had like the brief little vacation here. You know, I got to see family and everything like this, and now like, oh no, I get to go back to the office. But then, you know, literally after the first day of work, I'm like, oh okay, like I'm not sitting around. I'm not just, you know, being idle anymore. I'm actually back at it. It's not as bad as I thought it was, you know, every single time. You know, like I think a lot of people are just like scared of work itself as well, you know, especially like a lot of the younger guys. You know, they're like been in college for all these years where it's literally not work at all. You could work like 1 hour a day and, you know, go around and attempt to go and bang a bunch of chicks, but of course that's barely happening these days. Or you're just drinking with all your buddies, you just don't have any responsibilities. Like, oh man, it must really suck. It's like, I mean, it does, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, what else are you gonna do? It keeps you going. So it's not the end of the world to go out and get your hands dirty and be useful.
Also, I can say this from personal experience. There is nothing more satisfying than having other men that you respect come to you for your expertise on something. Even if it's something small, like within the realm of your job. If they ask you for advice and then they take it and they do it and it succeeds for them, or they ask you to help them with something, like, be that kind of guy. Be the kind of guy that someone can rely on because of your expertise. And any expertise requires a lot of work, and it's work that, no matter what it is, it's work that sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there definitely is a learning curve to all these kinds of things, but yeah, that really just is the most satisfying thing in the world when somebody asks you, about something that you're proficient in. I mean, whether it's in a work context or a dating context or whatever it may be, like, I think that really is something essential for guys. It's like, have a proficiency in some skill. It doesn't even matter what it is. Just be proficient at something.
Yeah, and you're going to find you will, as long as you're not a shut-in, you will find somebody interested in whatever it is that you're an expert in, even if it's something like 40K models or something like that. Like, you're going to run into people, and it will surprise you what people are interested in. Of course, by people I mean men. But
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you get like entranced in a conversation you just started with somebody who are telling you something really analytical about like their specific field, and you just know nothing about it? You're like, oh wow, that's actually really interesting. I think it's just something that's wired into dudes. We're just like really interested in these kinds of martial tasks, whatever it might be. It's just like, oh, you're working on this car. Well, I don't know shit about cars, but just tell me about this. This is cool. I'm liking that you're doing something. I'm liking that you're explaining something to me.
Yeah, men we're problem solvers, and anytime anyone's like, all right, so like I had this problem and I solved it, we're gonna be like, oh, how'd you do that? Like, I remember seeing on Twitter a couple days ago, there's a meme of it's like an ass, and it's shitting, and somebody has a microphone up to it, and it's got like the TikTok symbol on it. Right, like when you're reposting TikTok, it's just people spewing their nonsense. But it's a girl, and she says, "Why do men always want to find explanations for why they can't get laid?" And and that's it. We're problem solvers. We got a problem. We need to find out where that stems from, and then we can take steps to fix it.
Yeah. Absolutely true. I mean, and also like that's where you have some of the most heartfelt conversations with dudes as well. Like guys never just call each other just to talk. It's not something we do. We talk when we're doing something. Like some of the best conversations I've ever had with one of my friends is like when we're working on something together. Like whether we were kids, we were building like tree forts, or like when we're in our college years, we're working on somebody's Jeep together, or just doing something, or if we're whatever it is. Like sharing the completion of a task together is a really good bonding experience, and that's honestly when you have like the best kinds of conversations.
Oh yeah, I mean the good times that you have with men where you're just hanging around, they're like weak bonding experiences. The hard times when you're in the shit of it with someone, those are the strongest bonding experiences. But most of the good ones are just ones you have when you guys are both trying to get something done. You're both working towards the same goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, also I love it when it's organic too. Like when you're doing like those like household kind of projects, like around the house or something. Like one of my buddies, he recently bought a house earlier this year, and he just called me up. He's like, hey, I'm having some people over in a couple of weeks, and I would appreciate it if I could have a hand, with some landscaping work around my house, and I'll give you like a couple of beers. It's like, sure, dude, absolutely. Went over on a Saturday, got out like a hedge trimmers and all this stuff, and we were just working on these kinds of things together. And we were just talking about like, oh, how does he want this to look? Like, this is his house, this is his property. We're working towards like this task together, and it's just fun stuff. Like nobody was like really bitching about the work in that circumstance. Even though you're picking up like thorny bushes and shit and getting all bloody and everything, it's a pain in the ass. But no one was really hating on it because it was something we were doing together, and we're bros. And it's like, yeah, we did this. We did this thing.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because it made me think of I speak to my partner constantly when we're on the job site working, like when we're pulling wire and landing things, twisting stuff, whatever. We're constantly chatting about something. As soon as we sit down for lunch, we are dead silent. We don't speak to each other when there's not like something else going on.
Yeah, I feel like guys are very interesting in that regard. Like, if we're not like women, we just talk to talk. We only talk when something needs to be said. Like there absolutely are several circumstances I could think of where me and my buddies will just sit in a room together. We haven't even. It'll even be in occasions when we haven't seen each other for a long time. But number one, we'll just pick up right where we left off, and number two, we could just like sit there in silence, and we're totally fine with it. It's like, yeah. I know you're like not holding a grudge against me right now or whatever gay shit the women like to say. It's just like, yeah, nothing really needs to be said. We're just chilling.
Yep. I never wonder what my buddies are thinking about.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Never. Yeah, it's just not something. Yeah. God, that's so weird to even think about it that way. But like that's how like women react to things. It's like, oh, what are they thinking right now? And God, that's very profound. That's very true. I've never once thought about that. It's like, yeah, I don't care if he has something he needs to say, he'll say it.
Yeah. Because like, I mean, what happens in your head isn't real. Like it's just in your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Oh man, this is a great conversation. Let's wrap this one up, man. Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, Old Glory Club. Check out the Substack. Check out the YouTube. Check out the Twitter. We even have an Odyssey. Oh my God, so much. A lot of great content creators, far more eloquent than I, like our friend Red Hawk here. And I just also want to wrap up to echo what Red Hawk was saying earlier. Obviously, we're not besmirching work. We're not besmirching people who work hard. We're besmirching those people who build their identities around the action of work, just like people who build their identities around smoking pot. It's fucking lame.
Yeah. Absolutely. Very true. And I will echo what Not Me, Not You has said here. Definitely go check out the Old Glory Club. He did a fantastic stream covering January 6th. He had some very good insights on there. So go check out that on the channel. I thought that was a very well done stream. And check out the rest of the stuff that we're doing. For me, always follow me on Twitter. That's where you're going to get most of the updates for me on there. Thursdays is Man's Hour. Next week we'll be doing the poker stream. So basically Thursdays I'm basically doing double streams from now on. Our nerd podcast that I started with Jack Napier and Governor Megatron, Culture Warriors. That's every other Thursday. Our first episode was on Jack Napier's channel 2 hours ago. It was a lot of fun. We were talking about Mary Sue's. So go check that out. And then next week, the poker stream, we'll be back after this Man's Hour. So be on the lookout for those. Other than that, thanks for being here, guys, and we'll see you next time.
And be well.